Good morning, students. Today we will be talking about lactogenesis and also about its both the stages, lactogenesis 1 and lactogenesis 2. And we'll also talk about the galactopoiesis in today's lecture. And the third thing that will be there in this lecture, that will be the hormonal control of lactation. So the term lactogenesis is used to describe the initiation of milk secretion after parturition, that is, delivery of the fetus. The process of lactogenesis at parturition deals with the hormones that are involved in its initiation, milk secretion by the epithelial cells of the alveolus, and removal of the milk stored in the mammary gland. It should not be confused with hormone induced lactation in barren, non lactating cows and heifers, which is also known as artificial induction of lactation, which is altogether a different issue, different thing. And lactogenesis, while is a natural corollary or consequence, it's a natural event occurring because of the hormones which are secreted in the body, whereas the as the name indicates, artificial induction of lactation, that is done with the help of hormones, of course, but it is done by outside interference. It is a uh, non-natural phenomenon. The secretions by the epithelial alveolar cells. The alveolar cells of the lactating post-parturient mammary gland synthesize and secrete the milk proteins casein, serum albumin, alpha-lactalbumin, beta-lactoglobulin, immunoglobulin, and glycoproteins, fats, and lactose. These are all components of the milk which we have already talked of in our earlier lectures. At about mid-gestation, the epithelial alveolar cells, they begin to secrete appreciable quantities of specific milk products which accumulate in the mammary gland as pre-colostrum. So this is known as, or is, the lactogenesis stage 1, and it is a prerequisite for lactogenesis stage 2, which is the onset of copious colostrum and milk secretion at parturition. So lactogenesis 1 is occurring before parturition, is occurring during pregnancy, at almost at the end of the pregnancy, but occurring before the during pregnancy, before the parturition. So lactogenesis 1, the onset of lactogenesis 1, that is secretory activity in the mammary alveoli, is marked by production of colostrum. The appearance of lactose in the pre-colostrum is of physiological importance since it indicates that the intracellular apparatus for milk synthesis is functionally differentiated. Uh, this process, that is lactogenesis 1, it occurs at mid-gestation in case of goats, a month before parturition in ewes, 15 days before foaling in mares, and 10 days before calving in cows. During the period of late pregnancy, when the mammary gland remains unmilked, a local factor maintains leaky tight junctions to keep the epithelial paracellular pathways open and the ducts preamble. Transfers between extracellular fluid and precolostrum is then possible, The precolostrum contains some large molecules such as immunoglobulins, and its aqueous phase shows fluctuating levels of chloride, sodium, potassium, and the milk sugar, that is lactose. The fat globules, protein granules, desquamated epithelial cells, and leukocytes, which are also a part of milk that we know from our previous knowledge, they also accumulate in the lumen of the alveoli. Disappearance of this local factor with removal of precolostrum due to suckling or milking, it results in closure of the paracellular pathways in the alveolar epithelium and the duct system. Lactogenesis 2 usually begins shortly before parturition, when the mammary gland first releases the colostrum and then the normal milk. The colostrum of some of the animals like cows, bitches, ewes, goats, mares, and sows contains globulin antibodies, which are essential for transmitting passive immunity to their offsprings. The milk of carnivores with high protein and low sugar content is noticeably different from milk of the equidae family, that is the equine family, which includes the horse, mare, ass, that is protein poor and sugar rich. Now, this point was also mentioned. I flagged this point when we talked about the composition of milk in the different animals. So, there I mentioned to you that in case of the mare's milk, the lactose content is highest, 6.8%, while protein content is very low. Whereas in case of the bitches, the milk contains more proteins and less amount of sugars. So you can again refer back to the table in which I have mentioned the composition of milk in different species, and that will again elucidate this point. Then comes the hormonal control. The initiation of lactogenesis is controlled mainly by lactogenic hormones from the adenohypophysis, which includes prolactin and growth hormone, and also the placental lactogens, which are secreted by the placenta in the pregnant animals in cattle, sheep, and goats. Prolactin, growth hormone, and placental lactogens, they have similar structures, but within a given species, each hormone is believed to have a distinct biological role. The metabolic hormones, such as adrenal corticosteroids, insulin, and glucagon from the pancreas, and thyroid hormones, they also directly affect the mammary glands. These hormones also exert an indirect effect on the metabolic precursors needed for milk synthesis. In most periparturient females, the level of progesterone and placental lactogens, it decreases. Periparturient means that one which is almost close to parturition. These decline are followed by a rise in the levels of prolactin, estrogens, PGF2 alpha, oxytocin, and adrenal corticoids. So, as you know, that before parturition there is a decrease in the level of progesterone. At the same time, there is increase in the level of estrogen and PGF2 alpha, oxytocin, and adrenal corticoids. Now, two basic hormonal concepts explaining the triggering of lactogenesis stage 2 at parturition. They are the release of the mammary gland from the inhibitory effect of progesterone and a rise in the levels of some lactogenic hormones, that is prolactin and growth hormone, to overcome the progesterone inhibition. So, from your knowledge already of endocrinology, you already know the process of parturition, and in that, as you know, the events which are occurring are there's a drastic decrease in the level of progesterone, which is responsible for maintenance of the pregnancy, and corresponding increase in estrogens are there, and there is also increase in the level of PGF2 alpha, oxytocin, and adrenal corticoids. At the same time, there is also increase in the level of lactogenic hormones, prolactin, and growth hormones. So that is to overcome the progesterone inhibition, and as also its other effect will be that they will be acting on the udder, that is the mammary glands, and preparing them for further action, that is secretion of colostrum and the milk. In case of the bitches, the prolactin level rises steadily from mid-pregnancy to early lactation, then decline slowly as the lactation progresses and falls abruptly upon weaning. Prolactin levels are not significantly lower in pseudo-pregnant, that is diestrous bitches. During the last week of pregnancy, the mare shows a major increase in plasma prolactin concentration, which fluctuates but stays high during early lactation and then declines to the basal level in 1 to 2 months. If the foal dies shortly after birth, plasma prolactin falls rapidly and estrus occurs as early as 4 days postpartum rather than a week after parturition as the usual foal heat. Prolactin appears to be important for the completion of the mammary development and initiation of milk secretions. Suckling triggers increases in postpartum prolactin secretions. In case of the ruminants, after the lactation is established, prolactin secretion can be completely suppressed without arresting the milk secretion. That means prolactin secretion may totally stop, but it will have no effect on the milk secretion. The release of prolactin and growth hormone is episodic in ruminants. That means it is cyclical. At certain times it will be released. In the cows and goats, the prolactin plays a decisive role only for establishment of milk secretion. The concentrations of prolactin in blood are highest during summer and lowest during winters in cows, goats, and sheep. This prolactin periodicity, that is, its higher concentration in summer and lower concentration in winters, is maintained from birth to maturity in heifers and bulls, in rams, in pregnant cows, and in response to milking in cows and goats, and in response to suckling in the ewes. Goats and ewes pregnant during the winter months have an increase in prolactin levels only a few days before parturition. Similarly, prolactin levels rise sharply in the last 2 days of bovine gestation, and because of seasonal variations, are higher in autumn calving than in the spring calving cows. Growth hormone is more important than prolactin for galactopoiesis in ruminants. Levels of growth hormone, they are low in pregnant ewes and cows, but are somewhat higher and more fluctuating in ewes carrying twins or triplets. Galactopoiesis that we are going to discuss in the course of this lecture, that is basically the removal of the milk from the mammary glands. That process is known as galactopoiesis. Lactating or non-lactating goats do not liberate growth hormone in association with sleep, air temperature, time of the day or night, or husbandry routines, or in response to plasma levels of prolactin, insulin, glucose, or free fatty acids. So all these factors, they have no effect. They have no effect on the liberation of growth hormone. Plasma prolactin plasma placental lactogens levels, they rise to a plateau of highest values during the last third of gestation in goats and cows, but only 10 days before full term in ewes. Concentration of ovine placental lactogens in peripheral plasma begin to fall 5 days before parturition and disappear rapidly after delivery. Then let us talk about galactopoiesis. As I mentioned earlier, the term galactopoiesis refers to the memory stimulation of an already established milk production, where lactogenesis 2 has already been achieved. Galactopoiesis is related to the removal of milk from the mammary glands by either milking or suckling. It is a commonly known fact that lactogenesis 2 slows or ceases altogether if the frequency and extent of milk removal is reduced. The secretory activity of the mammary gland declines slowly and eventually ceases even though milk is removed regularly. The natural decline in lactogenesis often coincides with the weaning of the young one. A negative feedback mechanism operates locally within the gland, which may precipitate or participate in this slow, direct, and gradual involution of alveolar epithelium during the later stages of lactogenesis. So here again, one point which I had flagged earlier in my earlier lectures, that if you milk the animal frequently and remove the milk as much as possible from the mammary glands, that will act as a strong stimulus for more milk production, which is precisely the reason why the high yielding animals are milked not only once or twice a day but even 3 times a day. So that is the same point which has been elucidated here, that uh, lactogenesis 2 slows or ceases altogether if the frequency and extent of the milk removal is reduced. In some animals, the milk is produced during a period far exceeding the weaning period of the offspring. These main milk producing species are goat, water buffalo, that is the riverine buffalo, Murrah, and normal buffalo, which we are seeing, sheep, reindeer, and cattle. As a result of the genetic selection for milk producing ability, the typical modern cow produces more than 4 times the milk required to raise her calf, and the top producers, they yield milk that would suffice for more than 20 times the physiological needs of the normal calf. Postpartum anestrus occurs in cows and ewes. In ewes, the duration of the postpartum anestrus is related to the degree of mammary stimulation during suckling. In cows, which are usually pregnant for most period of their lactation, the degree of udder stimulation does not influence the duration of postpartum anestrus. In absence of a new pregnancy and with continual suckling or milking, lactation may be prolonged far beyond the normal weaning period. For example, as long as several years in case of the cows. So the difference that we see in case of the cows and ewes is that in case of the ewes, if the young ones are suckling the mother, so their postpartum anestrus will continue on till the young one is suckling the mother. But in case of cows, it is totally different. That the suckling by the calf leading to udder stimulation does not influence the duration of postpartum anestrus, which is more or less fixed. So, in the absence of a new pregnancy and with the continual suckling or milking, the lactation may be prolonged far beyond the normal weaning period in case of the cows. Prolactin, growth hormone, thyroxine, insulin, corticosteroids, and oxytocin are the hormones recognized as also associated with maintenance of lactogenesis, that is galactopoiesis. However, adenohypophyseal release of prolactin at milking or suckling is essential for galactopoiesis in most animal species except the goats and the cattle. In these two ruminants, that is the goats and cattle, the prolactin has a decisive role only in establishing lactogenesis 2. The conditioned stimuli of events preceding milking and the tactile sensation at the udder and teat during milking or suckling normally increase the maternal plasma prolactin and oxytocin level in all the species. In most dams, except the cows and goats, failure to empty the milk from a producing mammary gland leads to lower levels of prolactin and consequent hypoglycemia. Besides its classic role in milk ejection reflex, oxytocin also influences lactogenesis and galactopoiesis. Now, here I want to elucidate this point uh, as in the second lecture when I was discussing the letdown of milk or the milk ejection reflex. We dealt in detail the role of oxytocin in causing the letdown of the milk. So here I want to state that it is not only the role of oxytocin in milk ejection or milk letdown, but it also has a great role to play in lactogenesis and galactopoiesis. Oxytocin injected into lactating animals without immediate milking generally inhibits lactogenesis, whereas lactogenesis is stimulated if the ejected milk is removed immediately. This means that normally when the letdown of the milk occurs because of the release of oxytocin, so if the milk is removed immediately by the process of milking, so it will cause the stimulation for more milk production. But if the milk that has been ejected due to letdown is not removed immediately, then it will cause inhibition of lactogenesis. That is, it will cause decrease or stoppage of milk production. Oxytocin would contribute to galactopoiesis, that is removal of the milk, by loosening the tight junctions between epithelial alveolar cells and by accelerating the transfer of milk constituents into the alveoli. With this, I will end up the today's lecture, and next week we will continue on Monday with the galactopoiesis, and in that lecture I will also talk about the lactation cycle and the factors which are affecting the milk production of the animals. Thank you very much.